It's a beautiful day to eat and an even better day to digest. Willow, it's my understanding that you finally tried the gummy popsicle that we've previously covered on this show.
Yes, I did. And I gotta say, I don't want to say I'm disappointed because my hopes weren't exactly high, but it was not good.
Wow. You're doing this on the same weekend that I just tried the so-called Dubai chocolate. Are you familiar with that one?
Yes, I actually got to try that very recently as well. I got some of it for my partner for Valentine's Day, and I was lucky enough to steal a few bites. I loved it, honestly. I'm a big pistachio lover in general. That's probably like my favorite flavor to go with chocolate. And I thought the texture was really good. I think it would be easy to execute poorly because there are a lot of people making these copycats of it, but I thought it was really good.
I must have gotten one of the poorly executed ones because, first of all, I expected the texture to be a little fluffier. It is crunchier and denser than I expected, but also I think just the expectation for the copycats. Like I've seen this on even Facebook Marketplace, people selling their own versions of it, but I don't think it's coming from people who are tempering their chocolate properly or even know necessarily what that is. So it was like a refrigerated chocolate bar that as soon as I started unwrapping it, started melting in my hand. So I wouldn't try it again, especially because they're charging such a huge premium on them. But what fate that we would both try viral offerings and be able to talk about it today.
And thankfully, there's some of the less horrifying viral offerings that we've had to encounter.
Is one of the viral offerings the ones that's swimming through your nervous system right now? Are you sick? Is that what I'm picking up on?
Yes, I am kind of sick right now. I apologize to anyone that has to hear me sniffling throughout this episode.
Well, we'll get you back in bed quickly. Please, what's in the news this week?
Jim Jones, the director of the FDA's food division, resigned after significant layoffs reduced critical staff responsible for food safety and chemical regulation. He expressed frustration with the Trump administration's approach, which he believed undermined the agency's ability to protect public health, particularly after accusations from Robert F. Kennedy Jr. about the FDA's ties to the industries it oversees. These layoffs included employees with specialized expertise in areas like infant formula safety, sparking concerns about the impact on future food safety efforts.
I try to put myself in the shoes of someone who thinks or feels the opposite way of myself. I think I'm uniquely positioned to do that coming from a Texas background where the people that I grew up with are really different from the people that I ended up like going to school with and becoming an adult around. And I guess I can imagine someone saying like, good riddance to this guy and everybody who's getting fired. They're all fools who let me consume red dyes and preservatives. But I don't think that that's working for me this time. I'm not successfully able to position my mind as somebody who's happy about this because in order to do that, I would have to unlearn everything that we've talked about on the show with like food recalls and listeria outbreaks. My reaction to this story is, as always, pretty vibes-based and culture-driven, but the vibes from my perspective are indeed starting to look pretty scary. I think it's bad enough that I straight up don't want to fly now. Just because an infinitesimal amount of planes or a small percentage of planes are like falling out of the sky or landing upside down. And I'm already the type of person who wants to, for example, winnow and grind their own grain for bread just for fun. So what kind of freak am I ought to become just when this activity starts getting inspired by fear instead of like pastoral aspiration?
Yeah, it's much nicer to be a little freak when it's for fun and not because you're terrified of the government. Um, but yeah, I'm right there with you. I think that this man, it sounds like maybe he did the right thing in this situation, as frightening as this is. If I had to watch, nearly 100 of my capable coworkers get laid off from an agency that helps to protect the well-being of American citizens, I would be a little put off by that too and think, gee, is this really a company, or not a company, but an agency that I want to be working with? And I think that very rarely is hacking something apart like that a good sign. I think that, the under the guise of like a complete overhaul, that this could be viewed positively towards a certain subset of people who, like you said, are, excited to say good riddance to food dyes and chemicals like that. But I think that this is sketchy. In my notes right here, the first thing I have written down is things are feeling very sketchy.
Right. And I think that I would be more able to view it as like a an overhaul that people can be excited about if it is an actual overhaul. Like, hey, guess what? We're replacing person X with person Y. But instead, the story is this guy's just unexpectedly quitting after having a bunch of other people unexpectedly get fired. And it's one of these stories that I don't wish to actually report on because it's like, um, it's political, it's negative. I don't think people like hearing negative political news in their food-based comfort show. But I do earnestly try to react to this stuff anytime I hear like negative news and think of like what could possibly go right. And I'm coming up pretty short here, especially when it's like, I've worked in a bloated state government organization before where like we really didn't do anything and just wasted a bunch of money. And one of the things that we enjoyed the most was our really great retirement plan. And when I imagine 200,000 federal employees getting terminated who enjoy those good retirement plans and then selling off all of their assets, it's like even from an economic standpoint, I'm getting a little worried over here.
In a personal reflection posted to her Substack, Bon Appetit alum Carla Lalli Music has announced her departure from YouTube, a decision fueled by high production costs and low ad revenue, leaving her burnt out and questioning the sustainability of the channel. Going forward, Carla will be shifting her focus to her podcast, Substack newsletter, and upcoming cookbook. Now, as someone who's been on YouTube for a while, I'm sure that you have some insight into this.
Well, first of all, I got to say the musicality of the phrase Bon Appetit alum Carla Lalli Music. Just great job. Great. That is really fascinating. I think this is going to be really hard for me to speak about in an appropriately sensitive matter. So I'm going to lean on you to guide me on this one. I think we first have to start by saying it is a shame to see anyone in the space give up on anything that they're doing online. So I do hope that she does come back, and I don't want to write off that possibility is still there and always will be there. I did read the post, and the most shocking part to me, it seems like the most pivotal part, was that each one of her videos ended up costing like $10,000 each. Is that right?
Not quite $10,000. It was coming out to about $14,000 a month, so about $3,500 per video. But she was not making enough money in AdSense to justify those high production costs. I believe on her best month, she made like $7,500 in AdSense, so she's only making about half of that money back.
That sounds like a great month, by the way. My main channel gets like $1,500 a month, and this channel gets $50 a month. So I've never relied on AdSense, really. And if anybody wants to advertise, hey, we're available. Hit us up. Um, I think one thing that I've always noticed about the Bon Appetit alum videos on YouTube, whether it's like Molly Boz or who's the fermentation guy, Brad Leone, you'd see like people with a steady cam, and there's an A cam and a B cam and graphics. And I was like, holy cow, how do they afford this stuff? And this is something I discussed in the Discord a lot. Like, how do they earnestly afford this stuff? And it seems like the answer is they don't, or they barely do. Carla talks about how she doesn't want to do a one camera self-shot setup because she sees that as like a dip in quality, and she wanted to replicate the quality that people had come to expect on the Bon App YouTube channel. I think in this instance, she was just too attached to that legacy media stand and stir style, unwilling to adapt to contemporary aesthetics because she sees them as less than. By the way, I do that all the time. I can't imagine cooking a whole feast for a 60-second TikTok. It really baffles me. I don't understand how people do it, but the most successful people do. So I'm stuck to my YouTuber style, and it will almost certainly be my own undoing in the end. I don't want to act like I'm better than her for this, but that does seem like the fatal flaw in her channels.
Yeah, adapting to a new platform is always hard, or a new video style is always going to be hard. And I think it's a shame because I personally love Carla. I think she is one of the most engaging personalities to come out of the Bon Appetit test kitchen. And I would watch a grainy cell phone video of Carla organizing her spice cabinet happily. I think that she is wonderful, and I do understand why she feels that way coming from this sort of stand and stir legacy company. She did mention in her Substack that she has also tried to reach out to networks about working on like a network cooking show. And I think that, it is a shame that she is going to be moving away from this video content because I do feel like she is made for it.
I guess from my own perspective, I just wish that I could help proliferate this message of the whole point of being self-employed is to be a great boss to yourself. Because anytime I interface with somebody who's trying to get into this industry or trying to thrive in this industry, it's like, why earnestly do you have to post weekly? Do you need to? Do you want to? Is that something that's helping you, hurting you? I certainly didn't even know that she posted weekly, especially when, so much of our media consumption is algorithmic. You might not even realize that it comes out at a certain time on a certain day. By the way, Eater's Digest every Friday morning, first thing, 7 a.m. Arizona time. But it's like, you got to be nice to yourself as a boss. You don't need to be holding yourself to a bunch of standards that you impose on yourself. And I'm hoping that some time off will help Carla build up her her itch and her drive to make this sort of stuff. And I'm thinking, hoping, and expecting her to come back.
I think that you're also a good example of a YouTuber that has kind of struck that balance. I believe I remember seeing in that interview that you did with Carrot, and talked a lot about sort of that work-life balance of creating a successful, financially successful YouTube channel while not totally burning yourself out and giving yourself no life. I wish we could get this message to our dear Carla, because I love her and I would love to see more from her.
I'll put her name in the title so that she searches and finds it.
Martha Stewart and Jose Andres are teaming up to co-host Yes Chef, a new NBC cooking competition series set to premiere in April of this year. The show will feature 12 talented but hot-tempered chefs, nominated by their loved ones as they face culinary challenges designed to test their skills and help them overcome their issues with ego and attitude. Stewart and Andres will mentor the contestants, offering tough love and guidance in the heat of the kitchen, with the last chef standing winning a $250,000 prize.
My mind's eye is already conjuring up images of this show being really ham-fisted and fake sentimental. It's hard for me to imagine an NBC cooking competition, just like it would be for ABC or Fox, that can stand up to the only good cooking competitions of our time, Chopped and Top Chef. But it is a very of-the-moment concept, or at least of the sentiment that people are feeling right now. I think restaurant workers on social media, at least, seem to be really tired of like the Ramsay and Pierre White archetypes. And this could be a way for that mindset to trickle down to everyday eaters who don't know that that's a change that's taking place in restaurants and still expect people to behave like a Gordon Ramsay.
I think you have a point there about it ending up being kind of fake sentimental, but I also do feel like we see a lot of that in cooking competitions anyways. Like, there is very often some sort of like sentimental arc that one contestant has, where there's a tearjerker story in episode 7 about their great grandma or whatever. And that's wonderful. I get why they include that. You want to have these like compelling feelings towards certain people. And I almost think that leaning into that in a show like this could be beneficial, because people get really emotionally invested in these people on these shows and want to see them do well. So seeing somebody that comes into the show who's just a real jerk at the beginning and then having this sort of character arc, I think could be very compelling to some watchers. I think that it is gimmicky, but a lot of cooking shows have gimmicks, and I think that if they can make it work, it might be enjoyable.
Yeah, I only mentioned this because I mentioned it earlier in the show, but my secret story that I love to tell people about the times that I have interviewed, or what's tried out, casted, whatever the term is, for a cooking reality show. I go to the casting person and she's completely silent, but prompting me with questions. And so she'll say something like, "Ooh, did you eat a lot of your mother's cooking growing up?" And I'll say something like, "No." And she'd be like, "Oh, because like it's fraught. It's a fraught relationship, right? Like, play it up because like you hate her cooking." Like, she would just keep playing it up, and I'd be like, "Oh, no, sorry." And like the first time I did this, it didn't go well, and then the second time, a year later, she was like, "This is so much better," because I knew that she wanted me to play up into that. And it's so funny because I was doing it like over Zoom, and I'd be telling a story, and she would literally be on the other side, like visually, like with her hands telling me to hype something like up or down or make it sadder, or like doing faces like this, like, "Oh yeah, I was really frustrated with it." She'd be like, yeah, like more. So I totally understand that there's like a guiding hand making these narratives take place. But in terms of this show itself, ignoring all of that, I think that people who know Jose Andres know him to be a delightful ray of sunshine. I don't know if any of you guys have watched anything that he's done on YouTube with like Complex or Munchies or anything like that. It's a delight to watch him work. And people who don't know him will benefit from having Martha as a conduit for introducing him into the zeitgeist. I think her pairing with Snoop Dogg has been going on for a really long run, but over time it's been less of this like odd couple opposites attract situation to more of a, she's actually becoming quite Snoop-esque in her own right. I don't know if you saw the Charlie XCX Uber Eats Super Bowl ad where she's kind of catty and like, "Wait a minute, who are you?" Like, I think that the opposites have become less opposite and they've become a little bit more like. But I guess my only note for the makers of this show and its timing is that I think with culture coarsening so quickly recently, they might have had better luck trying this show a year or two ago. I think it stands to come off as like woke and sensitive and woo woo and fluffy. So that might work against them.
You do have a good point with that. I can see that putting off a certain subset of audience. I do think your peeling back of the curtain there, with that interview for one of these shows was very funny. Maybe we can orchestrate some sort of faux villain arc, and you can try out for this show instead. I can nominate you. It's perfect. Um,
By the way, I did try to get a faux villain arc on that show. It was a show with Gordon Ramsay as one of the hosts, and they were like, well, how do you feel about having him on the show? And I was like, I hate him. He sucks. He can't even make a grilled cheese. I'll show him a thing or two. And they're like, we love this. This is awesome.
Oh man, that's so good. I think that you also have a good point about Martha Stewart and Jose as hosts. I had not really considered the fact that Martha Stewart has sort of evolved past this odd couple pairing with Snoop. And I think now that she's kind of been in that for a while, putting her in a situation with this other, like you said, sort of ray of sunshine cooking character, I think that almost peels things back a little bit to the former Martha, where it's like, oh, my sweet little grandmother cooking for Easter. And I think that could benefit her as well, especially following the somewhat controversial Netflix documentary.
Mm. In other words, it's a good thing. All right, tell me about what horrifying new products are coming out soon.
All right. First, I got milk chocolate ring pops, followed by Van Holten's Warheads collab Blue Raspberry Pickle in a Pouch, and Promised Land Peeps collab for marshmallow flavored milk.
I feel like I'm gonna have to instate a new rule where it's like I only talk about one of these because it's like marshmallow flavored milk. What is there to even say about that? Blue raspberry pickle in a pouch. I could see it, doing well for that sort of like state fair, over the top, colorful and fun type of food. The milk chocolate ring pop is the one that speaks to me the most because I've seen a photo of it. The ring itself is chocolate. It's not just the gem on top of a plastic ring. It is
Who let it
completely
happen?
right. It's dysfunctional as jewelry, which is the entire purpose of a ring pop. Why would they do this?
Yeah, I saw that and I actually laughed out loud at the image. I'm so glad you brought that up. I don't know what idiot over at Ring Pops let this happen. I think it's so funny because it also comes in a 2-pack, so it's meant to be like we're getting chocolate married. And then maybe they want people to like take pictures of it, put it on social media, but there's going to be chocolate brown smears all over people's hands. It's going to be disgusting. I also think it's weird that this is being marketed as an Easter candy. It comes out March 1st. I don't know why we're putting wedding rings in the Easter baskets. Maybe I'm missing something there. I think that this is a horrible idea.
The optics are vile and the execution is as well. I will say that, this month I felt the joy of new products. I tried the Post Malone Oreos. I tried the Dubai chocolate. I got to witness what it's like to eat something, not just for my own enjoyment, but for the opportunity to say that I tried it. And last week I said, I might be coming around on this. I might be turning a new leaf on how I feel about this stuff. But now I feel like I've swung back to my original position in a much more extreme way. Like the morbid curiosity around what Warhead blue raspberry pickle in a pouch might feel like is, to me, just a flavor of consumerism like any other. And talking about last week again, I just found out Hornbull's Chornbulls and David's protein, which is like the opposite appeal. Like Hornbull's Chornbulls is so silly, and David's is just welcome to David's protein, which disgusting name if you read too much into it. But those are both brands from two guys who split up after making it big on RX Bar. And RX Bar was big like so many years ago. And then they're just like, well, we did it good with that, so let's try it again with two different strategies. And it's just like, I feel like I'm going crazy. I feel like it's not good to make people feel like they ought to try these or they ought to be interested in them or they ought to even be paying attention to any of this stuff. And then I start spiraling going, why am I even talking about this on my own show? Help me, help me.
Well, hopefully one of these weeks I can come around to you with a couple products that don't make you want to cry. Um, I definitely did not serve up the most appetizing array of items to you this week and the last couple weeks.
I'd be interested to see what the audience thinks if we just did away with this section entirely and came up with some other way to end the show. It can't keep ending with me going crazy and being upset and going into like an existential crisis because of Peeps marshmallow flavored milk. But here we are. And there
So
we go.
no Peeps marshmallow flavored latte in your future.
I don't think so. I just tried blending some of the leftover banana that my child didn't eat into half and half to use that to top a matcha latte that's just been off screen melting. And that's about as explorative as I'll get with my milks for now.
Banana matcha. That sounds interesting.
TikTok made me do it. No, not me containing multitudes. All right, the show's over. Goodbye. Eater's Digest is published every Friday on YouTube, Spotify, and other podcast platforms. You can also get a text-based version delivered to your email every Friday at patreon.com/shack.